Today's episode of Other Record Labels is sponsored by Lander, the official digital distributor of Other Record Labels. You can learn more about them and get 20% off your subscription for digital distribution and so much more by going to otherrecordlabels.com/Lander or clicking the link in the description of this episode. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Other Record Labels. I'm your host, Scott Orr, where we talk about the art and culture of running an independent record label. And today, I want to talk about something that I've been talking about for years, and it's something I'm kind of passionate about. And every time I talk about it, people really resonate with it. It's something that I think it excites a lot of DIY artists and DIY record labels whose job it is to promote releases. Ultimately, that's like our number one job, if not our only job. And it's, I think, the biggest pain point for everyone, which is we release a great album, but we get zero sales, we get zero coverage, we get zero attention. And it hurts and it's confusing and we're trying to figure out why. And maybe sometimes we get some coverage and we get some sales. And then as a record label, we try to duplicate that, but then we can't on the next release. And it's just really, really frustrating. And so that's why when I talk about today's topic, which is the post-release strategy, it resonates with a lot of people and it excites a lot of people and encourages and inspires a lot of people because they think, wait, don't give up after release date. Don't give up. There's another chance for this release to sell and to sell inventory and to get heard by the press. And if not the press, the general public, the only thing that really matters. And so I love talking about the post-release strategy. We talk about it extensively in our Label Mates group. We're going to be talking about it a little bit too, in another time, but I want to focus on it today. And here's what I want to do. I actually created a bit of a checklist just to give you some ideas. Actually, I created an entire little guide. You can download it if you click the link in the description or go to otherrecordlabels.com/post-release. That's just one word, post-release. And I'm creating a pretty in-depth document that will help you in this process. But I want to explain what I'm talking about, because some of you may not really understand what this concept is. And here's the issue. This goes all the way back to February of 2011. February of 2011, I released a record. It was, in a way, it was kind of my debut release. It was certainly my first release on my new record label, which I had formed with some friends. And so this was kind of like our first full-length record from the record label. We had done an EP a month earlier. This was my record, and I had a few records before, but I kind of reinvented my sound, and this was my first release. And I was playing some shows, and I was getting good attendance at shows, and people were singing along to the songs. I released a single, it went well, and I was really excited about the artwork, and it was just, everything was like going really well for me, and for this release. Anyway, release day came, and I felt this like swell of depression that came over me on the morning of the release, even though like sales were coming in. In fact, like at a good clip on Bandcamp, it was this like beautiful era of like, there was no streaming platforms in 2011 that was prominent in any way. And people were buying on iTunes, but the most part people were buying CDs and digital downloads on Bandcamp. And so my phone was going off. I was getting all these like alerts of sales and stuff, which was nice and encouraging, but I couldn't shake this like overwhelming feeling of depression that the album was out and it was done. It felt like something had died. It felt like, and I think what it was just that this thing I'd been working on for the better part of a year, songs I'd written that I much more than a year earlier that I was just super proud of and felt really, really good. It was all of this like pent up inertia, this like excitement. And there's just no way that release day, waking up in the morning, nobody making breakfast for me, nobody like congratulating me. There's, no team or anything. I'm not doing interviews or anything. It just felt anticlimactic. It felt like there's nowhere to go from here. And all of this buildup, I mean, for an artist, when they write a song and they're excited about it, it's intoxicating. It's an incredible feeling. And when you do that 10 times, and then when you go to the studio and you record the stuff and you hear it back and you're like, this sounds amazing. And you do that 10 times, then you put it together in a sequence and then you come up with artwork and it looks amazing. And then you press it on a vinyl or make CDs and they arrive in the mail and you're so excited. And it's all an intoxicating feeling, and it's all things that happen leading up to release day. And so release day is just inevitably anticlimactic, and it just feels like, wow, it's over. All that work and even the sales and even like some of the fan responses just still don't feel as great as that, 12 months lead up of anticipation and excitement. And it's just a very weird phenomenon. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. So here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the challenges of post-release, like why this needs to happen. And then I want to talk about the challenge, what I want to challenge you to do and how we can fix this problem. So I think the first thing we want to think about here is this bit of a mindset change. Before we dig into the challenges of release day, and the challenge that I have for you is having this mindset shift. And I'll use the analogy of a marathon because I think it's really, really apropos. But a lot of us think of release day as the finish line. Like we break through the tape and everyone cheers and gives us hugs and we get a medal. And I think that's wrong. I really do think that's wrong. In fact, it's the opposite. I honestly think that release day, the day the album comes out, is the starting line. The gun goes off on that day and the race begins. And the new finish line is quite anticlimactic. It might be at the end of the release campaign, which could be about a year long. On average, maybe an entire year. So think of your release campaign as a marathon that starts on release day and ends perhaps a year later. And so then what is the time that leads up to release day? When you do the pre-orders, when you send it off for manufacturing, when you send it to the press, when you make your one sheet, when you start to get some press coming in and you start to tease it to your fans, you release a single, you release a music video, you release a second single, you pitch it to playlists. All of that's happening before release day. So what is that then? Well, if we keep with this marathon analogy, this is the training. This is the buying the equipment, signing up for the race, working out, getting ready, telling your friends and family what you're doing, getting people to show up to support you. This to me is like preparing for the start of the race, and the start of the race is release day. And so this is a mindset shift. That's the first thing I think you should do, is just shift this mindset to stop thinking about release day as the finish line where everyone gathers around, claps and pats each other on the back and say, great job. That was a great release campaign. No. I think the real work happens after release day. And, we see this too with bigger artists, with bigger record labels, with bigger budgets, right? After release day is when you see late night TV shows, you see sync placements in movies or on popular shows and commercials. You see them showing up on Saturday Night Live, and you see them showing up at the Kentucky Derby and at the Grammys and on tour and announcing the tour and then doing merch and then getting a TV commercial. Now, I know these are things that are all like mostly out of the reach of our artists, but the point is that there's so much from a major label perspective that happens after release date. They really do a good job at treating it like the starting line. And so this is the mindset shift that we need to have. And when you start to think of it as, okay, anything that you do before release day doesn't deserve a pat on the back. It's just your job. It's just making sure the press know about it, making sure the fans know about it, building your email list, getting the album uploaded to your digital distributor, getting it uploaded to Bandcamp, adding the variants, sending it off to manufacturing, deciding on what merch you're doing, what physical formats you're doing for the release. This is all just your job leading up to release day. It's not actually part of the campaign, so to speak. So this is the mindset shift that you need to have. Now, let's talk about the challenges. Well, what are the challenges of release day, and why do we need to have this? What is the big issue here? Well, a couple things I will say. Oh, by the way, when I was talking about when the release is done, you're ready to upload it to your digital distributor. Another shout out to our friends at Lander. We partner with Lander this year as the official digital distributor of other record labels, and it's a big deal. And they're supporting our channel in a big way. They're supporting the podcast that you're listening to right now. They're supporting our YouTube channel and our entire community and making it possible to do weekly episodes, free resources every single week, like the post-release checklist that you can download today. That's all made possible by Lander. So check them out if you're looking for a digital distributor by going to otherrecordlabels.com/Lander. Lander spelled Landr, otherrecordlabels.com/Lander. The link is in the description of this episode. One of the challenges I think a lot of artists face after release day is let's cut our losses. It just, maybe we've been trying to promote this album now for the first month since it's been out, and we just feel like it's not resonating. So let's just cut our losses. Let's just stop investing time and money into it, and let's move on to the next release. The other challenge is creatives want newness. By the time an album comes out, it's at the very least, it's been probably 6 months since the album's been mixed and mastered. It's probably more likely been a year or even 2 years since the artist has written these songs. And so it's very common by the time that their job is to be out there promoting this record, and perhaps a year after release day, we're 2 to 3 years since they first conceived this record or wrote this song. And that's really hard for artists because they've probably written songs since then that they're really excited about. In fact, maybe they're already in the studio recording on their follow-up. Either way, even if it's only been a couple months, creatives just want something new. They want to be defined by something that they haven't made yet, not something they've already made. That's just normal for artists. But that presents a challenge for us as record labels whose job it is to promote these releases that artists are maybe not proud of. At worst, at best, they're just a little bit tired of or kind of lost enthusiasm for. That's really challenging. The other challenge with release day and why we have the post-release challenge is the cat's out of the bag. There's so much power in the mystique of pre-release singles and what's the album going to sound like, and the artwork looks cool, but what's it going to sound like when I put it on the turntable? What's side A sound like? What's the opening track? We've heard the single's number 3. These are the exciting things us fans enjoy about new releases. Once an album's out, the mystery's gone. You know what I mean? And I think there's something to that when an album's out, we don't have as much leverage than we do before it's been released, because now everyone can just hear it and they can judge it for themselves. They don't need to rely on our hype to wonder what this album sounds like. So those are the challenges of releasing a record. So here's my challenge for you. And now, really the biggest challenge in today's episode, the only thing I really want you to take away is this mindset shift I talked about at the beginning of the episode, shifting from the finish line to the starting line. So from a practical standpoint, and most of what I'm going to talk about today, or what I have to share with you, is in the document. So you can just go ahead and read that document. And then there's some examples of things that you can do. My challenge for you would be to post about the release on social media or create some sort of promotional initiative on a pretty reliable schedule. The first thing you want to do is you want to make the post-release part of your entire release campaign, your entire release schedule. So in the pre-release, getting ready for the marathon, one of the things you're doing is you're building up content and you're making plans for after release day. I've talked to you about a work back schedule. I also have a release roadmap. We've done this type of resources over the years, haven't we? And a lot of it, admittedly, is things that happen before release day. And in a work back schedule, there's not much that happens after release day. So one of the things you can add to your work back schedule is creating content and creating initiatives and promotional ideas that you don't execute until after release day. So build that into your entire release campaign. The way I do it is I often will record maybe 11 songs or 12 songs for a 10-song record, knowing that 1 or 2 are probably going to, or 3 are going to get cut from the record just for continuity's sake. Maybe it just doesn't flow. I don't think they're as good as the others. And I'm always so excited about that because I know that's a potential B-side in the waiting. Sometimes, like when I'm working on a track, I'll hit the brakes on it at maybe the 60% or 75% mark if I'm just not feeling it. And then I'll revisit it 6 months later after the album's done and say, is this a B-side? Is there something here? I always keep track of my demos. I always print and master instrumental versions because these are things that we can release as a way to kind of call back to the album and promote the record. And so I can release a B-side 6 months after the album came out. People might like the B-side. It might get on playlists. It might make money, but ultimately it's there to promote the album that it was cut from. So I like to hold back music for after the release. I like to hold back on certain promotional items. I talked to you one time about a record I did 3 records ago. I accidentally held back some of my physical merch in the sense that I didn't do cassettes initially, or they came in late. And so vinyl came in first. Or no. Cassettes came in first. So I was selling the cassettes, and then vinyl came in late, like 2 weeks late. And so then when that came, I put that up for order after release day. And then that sold individually. And then I had a few people ask me for CDs. So I decided to do CDs as well. And so it was like 2 months after the album came out that I announced CDs were out. I mean, I don't know if that's a great idea, because if somebody wants CD and somebody wants tapes, it's kind of nice if you offer it all at the same time. But for me, it worked out. I just ended up kind of like trickling out the physical releases over the like 3 months from release day. So that just happened to work out. So the big thing you need to tell your artists and for you is don't start something new. Stay in the same clothes. Stay in your same running shoes. The marathon is still happening. Here's the simple numbers. And I kind of put this together in a chart in the document. On release week, release day, for example, I might be posting something multiple times during that day. And in the first week of a release, I'm posting something on social media, on our YouTube channel, wherever I can reach fans, in the email list. I'm doing something every day for 7 days. The albums come out on a Friday. I'm posting and doing something marketing wise for 7 days, all the way into the next Friday, once a day, maybe even 2 times a day. That's stuff like music videos, in-store performance, in-studio performance, announcing a color variant, a song explanation podcast, a behind-the-scene photos, whatever I got stored, I'm doing that. And then I'm probably doing, in the 3 weeks that follow the first week of the release, I'm doing something 3 to 4 times a week. So I'm still keeping that pace of week 1, but maybe half. So instead of 7 times a week, I'm posting maybe 3 or 4 times a week. And then in the months that follow, I'm doing something at least once per week in maybe the 2 months that follows release day. And then let's say we're now 3 months after release day, I'm doing something once per week for a few months after that. And then I'm maybe doing something once per month for the rest of the year. And then I'm doing something big on the 1-year anniversary. But you see how that works? You see how it's like it tapers? Or you can think of it as like a bell curve too, if you include pre-release. So release day or release week is the top of the bell curve. It's the most amount of promotion you're doing. The bell curve before, the curve going up, is when you tease the album you release and you start releasing more and more things as you get closer to release day. And the same thing happens on the back end. You're releasing more and more content and promotional things after release day, shortly after release day. And then it starts to taper off and dissipate as you get further away from release day. So that's kind of what I like to think of it. I mean, I think a good album campaign might be, let's say, 16 months, 4 months leading up to the album, and then an entire year after the album. Or you could do 8 months after the album, and then that ends up being an entire year from when you tease the album to when you kind of finish the campaign. Depends on how much you have to milk, how big the album is, how it's resonating. So in the post-release checklist, I kind of give you some different things that you can do with your release to promote your stuff. And I've categorized it by like content extensions and reimagining things. So that's like releasing B-sides or unreleased tracks, acoustic stripped down versions, remixes, instrumental versions, live versions, demos, original iPhone demos. You can do exclusive things that you haven't released before, doing some sort of releases that focus on maybe just one song at a time. Other categories are like engagement and promotion. So you can do behind the song posts or mix breakdowns. You can highlight just individual songs each week post-release and just spend some time to talk about the song. Ask fans to share their favorite song or their favorite lyric. You can email your mailing list again. Another category is new formats and products. As I mentioned, you can do limited edition merch drop that happens a few days, a few weeks, a few months after release day. Do a format or a rare physical format that you haven't done. Like that's the time to do a lathe cut or a cassette. You could do a lyric zine or a poetry book, high resolution WAV files or Dolby Atmos mixes, an artist podcast. The other category is events and milestones. You can do a release day recap where a week later or a month later, you talk about what it's like to release an album, behind the scenes footage, thank yous, emotional moments from release day, including some hiccups or things that went wrong. 1 month anniversary, 6 month anniversary, 1 year re-promo, a Christmas song tie-in, connect the album to the holiday season in some way, a live Q&A. Where are they now? That kind of feeling of like in a year from now, like what's changed? Interview the artist. Like, how do you feel? This record's been out for 1 year. Tell me about like, how did you feel about it? How did it impact you? The mindsets category as well is thinking long-term. A release cycle should be 6 to 12 months, not 6 days. Every song has a chance for new discovery. And not everyone hears it on release day. Keep that in mind. I find that streaming completely redefines the timelines. There's albums like that I add to my library. I have no idea when it came out. It could have come out 3 weeks ago. It could be something that comes out on Friday, and I've just downloaded the pre-save album. But more likely, it came out last year. It came out 2 years ago. It came out 5 years ago. It's really kind of, I find streaming, one of the benefits of it is it's really kind of getting rid of that like time. It's making albums more timeless, I think, in a way. Physical media is doing that too. People need multiple exposures before something sticks. So they need that repeat messaging. It's okay. I mean, somebody on your mailing list who really likes you might get your email or see your social media post about your new record, but they're like, at a wedding, sitting in a church pew, and they're like, oh, so-and-so has a new record. I should check that out, but I can't right now because I'm in church. So they need to be hit again and again and again. Reframing is important. Present the album through different angles, visual art, fan reactions, exploring the behind the scenes creative process. That's it. That's all I wanted to share with you. This is such a fun topic because it really can help us reimagine what it means to promote a record. And I just want to encourage you to acknowledge the fact that albums don't die on release day. It's quite the opposite. And I hope for you, and I hope for all of us, that people are discovering our music every single day. That I hope that record I told you that I made and released in 2011, that was the precipice for this episode 14 years ago, I'm sure somebody's discovering that record today for the very first time and falling in love with it. You know, I have records in my collection. Gosh, I have records in my collection from the 60s and 70s that I just discovered and fell in love with. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Go to otherrecordlabels.com/post-release. And I have a document there, a checklist, as well as some other helpful tips and charts and stuff that will help you kind of process this concept and help you adopt this mindset shift. I'll also put the notes from today's episode in a blog post that you can check out there, and you can watch this episode as a video if you want to see my pretty face. And most importantly, friends, check out our sponsor, Lander, as your choice for digital distribution for you as an independent artist or a record label. Just go to otherrecordlabels.com/Lander. And thanks for listening.